there's a lot of content on the internet, and most of it is probably not worth consuming for most people. And I think every person should really decide for themselves what their information diet should be. Just like you don't put just about anything in your mouth if it happened to be in front of you. You have some sort of a plan of what you think you should be consuming in a day. People should have that same level of planning, even though we don't do very well with food, right? But hopefully we can start doing at least as well as we do with food when we consume the internet, because there's a lot of stuff out there. If we just consume everything randomly, we're basically letting somebody else's algorithm determine what goes into our brain. So we should have some sort of a plan. We should try to figure out where we need to go to actually find information that matches our plan in some way. And then it's probably worth consuming. So the funny thing is, in the other web, we actually made an emotion classifier where every article that comes in, we classify what emotion it's most likely to evoke in the reader. And then when you customize your feed, you get the list of emotions. Each one comes with a slider, and you can actually say, I want my feed to be more funny, less depressing, and you can configure it to your liking. Now, granted, I'm not sure that you would want to customize that every evening. Like, in this evening, I want it funny, and the next evening, you actually move the sliders back. But in theory, you could. So that is one place where I think the existing social media are really lacking from our perspective, but from their perspective, they're functioning really, really well. Right? If you think about the purpose of a social media algorithm, it's typically tuned to maximize engagement. Your engagement is something that you give to the company, right? Engagement is taking stuff from you. You're probably opening TikTok or Instagram or any of those services to get something from it, but the algorithm doesn't care what you want from it, right? It's not there to give stuff to you. It's there to get your engagement. And it gets your engagement by showing it whatever happens to get the engagement out of you. You might have been looking for something funny. It thinks that you tend to click more on depressive things. Even when you're looking for something funny, it's going to give you the depressive thing because it wants you to click more, not to get what you want.
Cheer them up.
But there's a big difference between what people want and what people actually react to in the moment, right? I want to eat a lot of kale. If you offer me cake right now, I'll probably sample the cake, right? It's not what I want to consume. If you ask me for my plan for the day, cake was not in the plan, right? But I will probably take it if it's right there. So I think it's the same thing when people go on social media, they think they want to be more informed, learn what happened in the world, look at some entertaining things to decompress before bed. And then 2 hours later, they're in some sort of disaster porn looking at the ruins of some city they've never been to and they don't know where it is, but they feel so sorry for the people in the photos. And that is totally not what they were looking for, but that's what they got. If you want to keep the internet from polluting your brain, then you need to stop letting the internet control what it puts in front of you. So the only way to avoid pollution is to actually determine what you put in an area. Right. So in our case, we control our brains. We control the inputs to our brains. We should just be very careful about what we allow to enter it. And most people are in the habit, especially today, of opening a feed and just scrolling. But who determined what's the next item in your feed? It's not you. So you're letting somebody else essentially control your diet for that entire period. And the people controlling that diet, well, they're really good at that. Right? They're really good at maximizing your engagement. If you think about how much better social media has become at this, I still remember the days when Facebook reached 20 minutes of time on site and they were celebrating. It was a big achievement. No other site actually achieved those numbers before. Most newspapers are at like 3 minutes on average, right? Facebook was at 20. TikTok is at 90 now, and it's only been 10 years, right? So TikTok is devilishly good in some way. But it's still not the apex. It's going to get better, or somebody else will come along who is even better than TikTok. As that industry is progressing, it becomes even more important for people to start paying attention and putting themselves back in control. And if the social media that you like doesn't have manual control options, you should probably disable it and go to some social media that does. I think Twitter still has 2 options for your feed, right? There's the For You option, but there's also just people I follow option, which is slightly better in the sense that the algorithm has less freedom to manipulate, right? On other web, we give you a lot more options to control your feed and to configure just about everything in it. But even that, if you feel like you go to other web and you intended to spend 5 minutes and you spend 15, something's wrong. Try to change your configuration, right? Because you should be getting what you wanted and not what you ended up getting because somebody controlled it. I think there's a big problem in the West right now of shortening attention spans. And obviously TikTok is a big symptom of the problem, but I don't think it's the cause. We've been having this go on for a very long time. And I even see this with small kids, that they are unable to focus on things, even though I remember myself at that age. And I used to spend much more time on even a single stick that I would find, right? Because, well, there was nothing else interesting around me except that stick for the next half hour. So I would play with the stick. Right? How can people address that? Well, there's several methods. The best one that I found is books. And I don't mean audiobooks, because you can multitask when you listen to an audiobook. I mean a physical book. You have to hold it, you have to look at it. For most of us, we read audioly, so you actually have to hear the words in your head. It basically took away all your senses for that moment. And I think physical books are really good at rewiring people back to the way they were before social media pretty quickly. It only takes 3 or 4 days of reading 15 minutes before bed when you suddenly realize that, hey, I've been staring at the screen, working on a single task for 20 minutes, and I haven't checked my email even once. And it seems like the book was unrelated to that, but I think the book actually leads to that. It allows you to be able to focus on other things because it reminds your brain, hey, this mode exists. The mode where all your senses are focused on one thing and nothing else. You don't check your email, it's not there.